Debby Elnatan from Israel. Debby belongs now to the next category, the caregivers, the non-professional caregivers, and I'm going to invite now Debby to present her story.
Because my dad was so handy, and I learned from him to respect people who work with their hands. Until today, often I find it's easier just to create what I need. I think there's a common thread also between America and Israel, self-reliance. My dad was very American as well as being Jewish, and he taught me self-reliance. He would give me tools as presents, and until this day, I have a ratchet set he gave me so I could fix my own car, and my dad taught me to sew. So he gave me a big gift that enabled me to just respond to many situations, just to create something that I needed. Rotem is our second son.
You sit up straight?
When he was 8 months old, we understood that he had cerebral palsy. And actually, we were called into his school and told, your son doesn't know what his legs are.
Stand up straight, Rotem. Up straight.
I started just standing him. So if he went to the playground, I had Rotem walking, then go up the steps and go down the slide. And I just remember the feeling of all the other mothers' eyes on me, and their kids are just doing it naturally. I imagined them feeling sorry for me, but I probably mostly felt sorry for myself. And my back hurt from this activity of bending over. And I just said, there's got to be a better way to do this. I don't think there was anything on the market that would satisfy my need, so that's why I invented the UPSI. I just tied his ankles to my ankles, and put a strap under his underarm and held him and started walking with him. It wasn't great, but it was a start. So then I went on to sandals. I asked around in Jerusalem, who can help me build these double sandals? And I was pointed in the direction of Uri, a professor of shoemaking. And we worked together to do these sandals. And then I worked on the harnesses. And it was a long process of making prototypes. I also got to know what motivates my kid. You have to learn your child, or they have to learn you. You're going to start out on the right foot or the left foot together. How fast are you going to go? So there's a physical bonding, but then there's something else. Who's taking the lead? If you let your child take the lead, they almost forget that you're there behind them. People often ask, does your son walk? He's not an independent walker. But I figured out what it is that the UPSI does, because I'm still doing it today. My role as a parent is to be there behind him, to give him support enough so he can do what he's able to do. Let him feel like he's the roller and the mover. And that's the UPSI. And it's an approach. It's not just a product.
מה אתה עושה, רותם?
Thank you very much. I see I'm not the only one to use this. Lisa, necessity is the mother of invention. The first thing I want to share with you is that I don't believe there is such a thing as special needs. We always say special needs children, special needs. We all have the same needs. What is special are the solutions. And that's why we're all gathered here today, I think. As a mom and a product developer, the UPSI success gave me proof that I have commercially viable special solutions for many of the needs of children with physical disabilities. And this realization has encouraged me to move ahead at full speed along the road to getting my additional 18 inventions commercialized. I had inventions for every stage of my child's life, and I couldn't even go out of the house with my inventions. I would find myself custom making this chair, this crawler for every mother that I would meet. So I had to keep my inventions at home and wait till the time that I could launch them, like the UPSI. So today I want to share with you the lessons that I've accumulated over the past 20 years, from the time I first attempted to improve Rotem's life, and then the lessons that I'm now learning as I attempt to bring these products to the market with the intent of improving the lives of similar children and adults with disabilities around the globe. Being a violinist, I knew that practice makes perfect. But as I observed my son Rotem's life at age 2, I didn't see practice and I didn't see perfect in his dictionary. The only P word for him was passivity. At age 2, most of Rotem's hours, waking hours, were spent tied up to his armpits in various chairs, standers, carriages. So the UPSI was my means of battling this passivity. And I'm really thrilled to share with you that more than 7,000 children in 140 countries around the world now have access to an active childhood. They are flying kites, fishing, playing soccer and golf, having water fights. Believe it or not, one of my UPSI users in the US is skateboarding daily. But I want to share with you another reality, one that exists beneath the surface, one that's visible only on an X-ray machine. Now, Rotem's not my first child, so I did have some experience as a mother. But you know, we don't pay attention to all the miracles of nature unless something goes wrong. Raising Shachar, Rotem's older brother, did not teach me that the hip, ball, and socket joint does not develop if the child is not bearing weight in an upright position. And I don't know how many of you know that. Raising Shachar didn't teach me that cruising along the couches before learning to walk is what develops the muscles that keep the ball in the socket. When Rotem was born, no one explained to me that because he doesn't stand upright, he doesn't cruise the furniture, and he has a neurological impairment, that statistically it is near certain he will need to undergo a very highly invasive hip and femur operation with a long and painful recovery time. You can see this child with the bar in between their legs, I think, for weeks after the operation. What helped my education and accelerated my learning curve was that I had a niece, Debby Elnatan, also with spastic cerebral palsy. She was older than my son. I witnessed Ronnie after her hip operation. Her femur had been cut into two, rotated, screwed back on. Her hip bone had been slit and bent to create a socket that she didn't have to hold the ball in place. She spent months at home recovering from this operation. And the trauma from the protracted and painful experience had long effects on her. For me, I felt like taking this route was planning a terrible motorcycle accident for my son. Ronnie's experience pushed me to plan an alternative route. So I was determined to help Rotem achieve an upright position where he could bear his own weight. Using the UPSI, we beat the system
and his orthopedic reports during that time, against all odds, showed how his hips developed well through all his UPSI years. I am pleased to find out, though, that it's not Rotem's private miracle. Daniel Smith, at age 4, was the first child in the UK to trial the UPSI. From age 1.5, Daniel's biannual orthopedic checkups had shown that his hip was undergoing progressive deterioration as the ball was slowly dislocating out of the socket. You can see on one side that ball going up there. After using the UPSI weekly for 1 year, Daniel's x-ray showed that the ball had moved back into the socket. His surgery was canceled. His story reveals the power of simply getting our young children upright and on their feet. Daniel got a 1-year head start on the other 7,000 children using the UPSI. So I sincerely hope that Daniel's story will become the rule and not the exception. In addition, Daniel's mother reports that he's standing almost completely independently now. Feedback from the first year of sales shows that the UPSI children are generally happier and more confident. They're learning to hold their heads up, to bear their own weight on their feet, and improve their hand coordination. They're holding their heads up because they've got something to look at and to do in the environment. Their hands are increasing because when you're standing up, you have access to the environment and you can use your hands to play and touch. So my additional products facilitate children to learn, to sit, to crawl, to stand, sit to stand and walk, together with all of the in-between stages leading up to those activities. You simply cannot learn to play soccer without kicking the ball. I want to talk about the importance of activity. But first, just think how quickly a baby doubles, triples, and quadruples his size. Early childhood is the most intense period of skeletal growth. But the bones are growing rapidly. I don't know how many of you know, the bones grow, but the muscles don't grow automatically the same as the bones. This occurs because the muscles, if they're not being used at all, or not being used properly, or not being used through their range of motion, they don't grow at the same rate, and they become like rubber bands stretched over joints. The child's muscular skeletal system becomes like the rubber bands over the joints and causing contractures, shortened muscles, impairing movement in many of the joints, the ankle, the knee, the hip, the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist. In many cases, this eventually causes deformation in the child's skeletal system, causing additional impairment, loss of function, pain, and making it almost impossible to take care of these children. It is simply wrong to let this damage and debilitation occur when it can be avoided by simply taking an activity-oriented approach as opposed to the classic passivity approach. Not enough resources, public or private, have been funneled into improving the lives of these children at risk. Activity-oriented innovation such as the UPSI can significantly improve the children's outcomes and quality of life, and I believe that the sky is the limit. The place where innovation meets the world of business and investors does not usually serve the needs of the interest of the patients. There are many rules at play that determine what products come onto the market. I fully support patient innovation initiative. Our next task is to assure that the innovations reach those who need them. It took me 18 years to bring the UPSI to the global marketplace. That is despite the fact that therapists told me for 18 years, I meet a mom a day who needs your invention. But the message from all of my meetings with companies, investors, manufacturers, technology accelerators, government entities was that the market is niche and therefore not profitable. Some thought the UPSI was just a gimmick. Many investors responded that the UPSI was too low tech. They'll be happy to invest in me if I use robotics. Most investors simply don't review rehabilitation products as a sexy investment target. Some companies said my products are too multifunctional. Others said you can't get insurance coding for a new product. To be clear, commercializing a rehabilitation product is a very frustrating pursuit. Thanks to the vision of James Leckie at Leckie Designs in Belfast, the Firefly Upsy made its way to the market. Even with these frustrations and barriers, I remain resolute and focused in my mission. We now know that improving our special children's lives, both in the short and in the long term, will bring tremendous benefits to both our children and to society, making the impossible become possible. While it took me 18 years to commercialize my first product, I'm committed to turning this equation on its head and bring out my next 18 products in the next year. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Congratulations.
And Professor Helena Canhão, the Chief Medical Officer of Patient Innovation and also one of the project leaders,
Thank you.
awarded the...
And congratulations for UPSI and all your achievements.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.